Hello, and welcome back. If you want to improve your English listening skills while learning powerful ideas that can change your life, you're in the right place. Today's book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And here's a simple question. Why do some people completely transform their lives while others keep making the same promises year after year? The answer isn't motivation. It isn't talent, and it isn't luck. According to James Clear, your future is shaped by what you do repeatedly, every day. Small habits, tiny actions, almost invisible choices. And by the end of this book summary, you'll know exactly how those tiny actions can completely change your life. So, let's get started. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Tiny Habits. Most people think success comes from making huge changes. A dramatic transformation, a powerful breakthrough, a life-changing decision. But James Clear says that's not how real change happens. Real change happens through small improvements, repeated consistently over time. Think about a plane leaving Los Angeles for New York. If the pilot changes the direction by only a few degrees, nobody on the plane notices. Everything looks the same. But several hours later, the plane ends up in a completely different city. A tiny change, a completely different destination. Life works exactly the same way. Your habits are like the direction of that airplane. Every decision you make is moving you somewhere. One healthy meal won't make you fit. One workout won't transform your body. One day of studying English won't make you fluent. But repeated over months and years, those small actions create extraordinary results. This is why habits are so powerful. The problem is that most people only focus on big moments. They ignore the tiny daily actions that are creating their future. Imagine two people. The first person spends 20 minutes every day learning English. The second person keeps saying, "I'll start next week." After one day, there is almost no difference. After 1 month, still very little difference. But after 2 years, the first person can confidently communicate in English. The second person is still waiting for the perfect time to begin. The difference wasn't talent. The difference was consistency. And this leads us to one of the most important ideas in the entire book. Why do so many people quit before seeing results? Let's find out. Chapter 2. The Plateau of Latent Potential. Have you ever worked hard at something and felt like nothing was happening? Maybe you exercised for weeks. Maybe you studied English every day. Maybe you started a YouTube channel. But despite all your effort, you couldn't see any results. Most people experience this. And unfortunately, this is exactly where they quit. James Clear calls this stage the plateau of latent potential. Let's understand it with a simple example. Imagine an ice cube sitting in a cold room. The temperature is 25 degrees. Nothing happens. You increase it to 26. Still nothing. 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 Still nothing. Then the temperature reaches 32 degrees. Suddenly, the ice starts melting. Now, here's the interesting question. Did the change only happen at 32 degrees? Of course not. Every degree mattered. The progress was happening the entire time. You just couldn't see it. This is exactly how habits work. Most results are delayed. Success is often invisible in the beginning. People quit because they believe their efforts aren't working. But often, they're much closer to success than they realize. Example. Think about someone who uploads YouTube videos. They upload for 3 months. Almost no views. They upload for 6 months. Still very little growth. Most people quit. But someone who continues improving eventually reaches a point where everything starts growing faster. To outsiders, it looks like overnight success. But the truth is, That success was being built quietly for months or even years. The lesson is simple. Never judge your progress too early. Great results often come after long periods of invisible work. And that brings us to another surprising idea. If success takes time, should we focus on goals? James Clear says, not exactly. Chapter 3, Forget Goals, Focus on Systems. Most people are obsessed with goals. They say, I want to lose weight. I want to become fluent in English. I want to build a successful business. Goals are important, but James Clear argues that goals alone are not enough. In fact, focusing too much on goals can sometimes hold you back. Here's why. Every athlete wants to win. Every student wants good grades. Every entrepreneur wants success. Having a goal doesn't make you special. What matters is the system behind that goal. A goal tells you where you want to go. A system tells you how you'll get there. Goals create direction. Systems create progress. Imagine two people who want to become fluent in English. The first person says, my goal is to speak English fluently. The second person says, I will listen to English for 30 minutes every day. Who is more likely to succeed? Obviously, the second person, because they have a system. Most people spend their time dreaming about results. Successful people spend their time improving systems. James Clear writes a powerful idea. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Think about that for a moment. Your future is hidden inside your daily routines, not your wishes, not your dreams, not your motivation, your routines. A successful writer doesn't wake up every day thinking about publishing a bestseller. Instead, they focus on writing every day. The bestseller becomes a byproduct of the system. The same is true for fitness, business, learning English, and almost every area of life. But there is something even deeper than systems, something that determines whether a habit lasts forever or disappears after a few weeks. That thing is identity. Chapter 4, Identity-Based Habits. This is one of the most powerful ideas in Atomic Habits. Most people focus on changing what they do. James Clear says real transformation happens when you change who you believe you are. Let's look at the difference. Most people say, I want to read more books. I want to exercise. I want to learn English. These are action-based goals. But James Clear suggests a different approach. Instead of asking, what do I want to achieve? Ask, who do I want to become? That question changes everything. A person who reads regularly isn't trying to read books. They see themselves as a reader. A person who exercises consistently isn't trying to work out. They see themselves as a healthy person. A person who practices English every day isn't trying to learn English. They see themselves as an English speaker. Every action becomes a vote for the type of person you want to become. Every workout is a vote for becoming healthy. Every page you read is a vote for becoming knowledgeable. Every English conversation is a vote for becoming fluent. The more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. Example. Imagine someone offers a cigarette to two different people. The first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I don't smoke." The difference is subtle, but powerful. The first person is still identifying as a smoker. The second person has adopted a new identity. And that's why lasting change becomes easier. When your habits match your identity, consistency feels natural. You stop forcing yourself. You become the kind of person who naturally does those things. And now that we understand how habits shape identity, it's time to learn how habits are actually created. Because every habit, good or bad, follows the same hidden pattern. In the next part, we'll uncover the 4 stages behind every habit: cue, craving, response, Reward. Once you understand these 4 stages, you'll begin to see why you do what you do every single day.
Chapter 5. The Science of How Habits Work. Every habit, whether good or bad, follows the same cycle. James Clear calls it the 4-step habit loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. Understanding these 4 steps is like finding the source code of human behavior. Once you understand them, you'll begin noticing habits everywhere. Let's break them down one by one. Step 1. Cue, the trigger. Every habit starts with a cue. A cue is a signal, something that tells your brain to begin a behavior. Think about it. Your phone vibrates. You immediately check it. The vibration is the cue. You smell coffee. Suddenly you want coffee. The smell is the cue. You walk into your bedroom. You automatically lie down on your bed. The room itself becomes the cue. The brain is constantly searching for signals. It wants to predict what happens next, and cues are those predictions. Example: imagine you're trying to build a reading habit. Every night before sleeping, you place a book on your pillow. When you enter your room, the book catches your attention. That book becomes a cue. Eventually, seeing the book automatically reminds you to read. The lesson? Good habits need obvious cues. Bad habits often start with unnoticed cues. But a cue alone isn't enough. You don't act because you see something. You act because you want something. That brings us to step 2. Step 2, craving, the desire. Craving is the motivational force behind every habit. It's what makes you want to act. People often think they crave habits. That's not true. They crave the feeling that the habit creates. Nobody craves brushing their teeth. They crave a clean feeling. Nobody craves checking social media. They crave entertainment. Nobody craves exercise. They crave feeling healthier, stronger, or more attractive. The habit itself isn't the goal. The change in state is the goal.
A notification appears on your phone. The notification is the cue. But the curiosity you feel, that's the craving. You want to know what happened. You want information. You want stimulation. That's what drives your behavior. Without craving, there is no action. And once craving appears, the brain moves to the next stage. Step 3, response, the action. The response is the actual habit. It's the behavior you perform. Reading a book, going to the gym, checking Instagram, watching YouTube, studying English. All of these are responses. But here's something important. Whether a response happens depends on 2 things. First, how motivated you are. Second, how easy the behavior is. Even if you want something badly, you probably won't do it if it's too difficult.
Example: imagine 2 scenarios. In the first scenario, your running shoes are already beside the door. In the second scenario, your shoes are buried somewhere in a closet. Which situation makes exercising easier? Obviously, the first one. Small amounts of friction can dramatically affect behavior. This idea becomes extremely important later in the book, because one of the best ways to build habits is to make them easier. But before that, let's finish the loop. Step 4, reward, the result. The reward is what your brain receives after completing the habit. And rewards are incredibly important because rewards teach the brain whether a behavior is worth repeating. If a behavior feels rewarding, your brain remembers it. If a behavior feels unrewarding, your brain ignores it. Over time, rewarded behaviors become automatic. This is how habits are formed. Example: imagine you finish a workout. Immediately afterward, you feel energized. You feel proud of yourself. That positive feeling becomes the reward. Your brain remembers it. The next time you think about exercise, your brain expects that reward again. And that's how habits strengthen. This entire process happens every day. Cue, craving, response, reward. Again and again. Thousands of times throughout your life. Now, here's the exciting part. If all habits follow this pattern, then we can intentionally design better habits. And that's exactly what James Clear teaches next. He introduces the 4 laws of behavior change.
These 4 laws can help you build almost any good habit. Let's start with the first one. Chapter 6. The first law, make it obvious. If you want a habit to stick, it needs to be obvious. Remember the first step in the habit loop? The cue. If the cue isn't visible, the habit is less likely to happen. Most people think habits fail because of motivation. Often, habits fail because people forget. The habit simply isn't visible enough. James Clear says, the environment is often stronger than willpower. In other words, what you see influences what you do more than you realize. Example, if cookies are sitting on your desk, you'll probably eat them. If a book is sitting on your desk, you'll probably read it. The environment silently shapes your behavior. This is why successful people design their environment carefully. They don't rely entirely on self-control. They make good habits obvious.
The habit scorecard. The first tool James Clear recommends is called the habit scorecard. Most habits happen automatically. We perform them without thinking. The habit scorecard helps bring awareness to your behaviors. For one day, write down everything you do. Wake up, brush your teeth, check your phone, eat breakfast, study, watch videos, everything. Then label each habit. Positive, negative, or neutral. The goal isn't judgment. The goal is awareness, because you can't improve habits you don't notice. Example, many people discover they check their phones dozens of times every day without realizing it. Awareness is the first step toward change. Before you can improve a habit, you must see it clearly. And once you've identified your habits, it's time to make good ones easier to remember. Implementation intentions. One reason habits fail is because people are too vague. They say, I'll exercise more. I'll study later. I'll start tomorrow. The brain loves specifics. That's why James Clear recommends implementation intentions. The formula is simple. I will perform habit at time in location. Example, instead of saying, I'll practice English, say, I will practice English at 7 p.m. in my bedroom for 30 minutes. Now the decision has already been made. There's less room for excuses. And research consistently shows that people are more likely to follow through when they make specific plans. But James Clear offers an even more powerful strategy, and it's one of the most practical techniques in the entire book.
Chapter 7, the second law, make it attractive. Think about this. Why do people spend hours scrolling social media? Why do people binge watch entire TV series? Why do people repeatedly check their phones? It's because these activities are attractive. Your brain is naturally drawn toward things that promise pleasure. The more attractive an opportunity appears, the more likely you are to act on it. This is where James Clear introduces an important idea. Behavior is driven by anticipation, not possession. In other words, the expectation of a reward often motivates us more than the reward itself. And the chemical responsible for this is dopamine. The dopamine effect. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. That's not entirely true. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It spikes before the reward arrives, not after. Your brain releases dopamine when it expects something exciting. This is why people constantly check their phones. They don't know what they'll find, but they expect something interesting. And that expectation
creates craving. The same principle can work in your favor. If you can make good habits attractive, you'll naturally want to perform them. Example, imagine two people trying to learn English. The first person treats it like homework. The second person listens to interesting podcasts, watches engaging content, and learns topics they genuinely enjoy. Who stays consistent longer? Almost always the second person, because enjoyment creates attraction, and attraction creates consistency. The more attractive a habit becomes, the easier it is to maintain. But how do we make habits attractive? James Clear offers a powerful strategy: temptation bundling. Temptation bundling means combining something you need to do with something you want to do. This makes difficult habits more enjoyable. Instead of relying on discipline, you create anticipation. Formula: after doing something I need to do, I get to do something I want to do. Example: you only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while exercising. Now, exercise becomes associated with enjoyment. Or maybe you only watch your favorite show while walking on a treadmill. Suddenly, the habit feels easier because your brain starts looking forward to it. The goal is simple: connect positive feelings with positive behaviors. Over time, your brain begins craving the habit itself.
Chapter 8.
The third law: make it easy. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make. They try to make habits impressive instead of making them easy. People say, I'm going to read 100 pages every day. I'm going to exercise for 2 hours daily. And then they quit. Why? Because motivation fades, but difficulty remains. James Clear argues that successful people don't make habits harder. They make habits easier. The easier a habit becomes, the more likely you'll repeat it. And repetition is what creates mastery. Not perfection, not intensity, repetition. Motion versus action. Many people spend their lives preparing, planning, researching, thinking, organizing, but they never actually start. James Clear calls this motion. Motion feels productive, but it doesn't produce results. Action creates results. Example: reading 10 books about fitness is motion. Doing 10 push-ups is action. Watching videos about English learning is motion. Actually speaking English is action. Planning a YouTube channel is motion. Uploading a video is action. Successful people spend less time preparing and more time doing, because action creates feedback, and feedback creates improvement. Reduce friction. Every habit has friction. Friction is anything that makes a behavior harder. The more friction a habit has, the less likely you'll do it. Successful people reduce friction. Example: if you want to read more books, keep a book on your desk. If you want to exercise, prepare your workout clothes the night before. If you want to practice English, keep your learning apps open and ready. The easier the habit becomes, the more likely you'll follow through. Remember, people naturally choose the path of least resistance. Design your environment accordingly.
Chapter 9. The fourth law. Make it satisfying.
Human beings repeat what feels good and avoid what feels bad. It's that simple. The problem is that bad habits usually provide immediate satisfaction, while good habits often provide delayed rewards. Eating junk food feels good immediately. Skipping a workout feels comfortable immediately. Scrolling social media feels entertaining immediately. But the consequences appear later. Good habits work in the opposite way. Exercise is uncomfortable now. Reading requires effort now. Learning English takes patience now. But the rewards appear later. This creates a challenge. Your brain naturally prioritizes immediate rewards. So James Clear suggests a simple solution. Make good habits immediately satisfying. Why immediate rewards matter. When a behavior feels rewarding, your brain remembers it. And when your brain remembers it, you're more likely to repeat it. The faster the reward arrives, the stronger the habit becomes. Okay, guys, let's quickly review everything we've learned. Lesson 1. Small habits create massive results. Tiny improvements compound over time. Lesson 2. Progress is often invisible before it becomes obvious. Don't quit during the valley of disappointment. Lesson 3. Goals create direction. Systems create progress. Focus on systems. Lesson 4. Change your identity. Don't focus only on what you want to achieve. Focus on who you want to become. Lesson 5. Every habit follows. Cue, craving, response, reward. Lesson 6. To build good habits, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. Lesson 7. To break bad habits, make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. Lesson 8. Use habit tracking. And remember, never miss twice. Lesson 9. Follow the Goldilocks Rule. Stay challenged, but don't overwhelm yourself.
Before we finish, I want you to remember one thing. Your life doesn't change because of one decision. It changes because of the decisions you repeat every day. The person you become next year is being created right now by today's actions, today's choices, today's habits. You don't need to transform your entire life tonight. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need endless motivation. You only need one small step, one habit, one action, one vote for the person you want to become. Because success is rarely the result of one massive breakthrough. More often, it's the result of hundreds of tiny choices that nobody sees. Until one day, everyone sees the result. So after this video ends, ask yourself one simple question. What's one small habit I can start today that my future self will thank me for? Start there. Stay consistent, trust the process, and let time do the rest. Because small habits don't stay small forever. They become your future.